Good morning, everybody. Happy Friday, or is it here at the Rangers Review? I'm Derek Clark, and I'm joined by a full squad this morning. Firstly, Joshua Barry. How are we doing, Joshua?
Yeah, good. I've been better having to talk about last night's game again, but delighted to be joined by Adam to bring some new ideas to the table.
Yeah, I thought it was all a bad dream, but unfortunately not. Adam Thornton also joins us. How are we getting on, Adam?
Yeah, I thought Joshua was going to expect me to bring some positivity there, which is absolutely not happening. Yeah, I'm okay. No more than that. I think that's probably putting it kindly.
Yeah, lots to talk about, folks. Before we do that, you can see a little ticker below us if you're watching us on YouTube or Facebook. We've got two fantastic offers on the website just now, £4 for 4 months or £18 for the entire year. Head over to rangersreview.co.uk/subscribe to take advantage of that. And we've also launched a WhatsApp group as well. There's only 2,000 spaces available. So many of you have taken them up already. You'll get access to exclusive videos and links to breaking news and the latest news as we get it in terms of the managerial search. There'll be posts from myself, Chris Jack, and Joshua on there as well. And the WhatsApp link is in the description box, so do go click it if you want to be part of that illustrious WhatsApp group. Right, Joshua, we were on last night giving a reaction to the disaster in Limassol. I'm keen to hear your thoughts, Adam, before we delve into the detail. What did you make of that shambles last night?
I don't think I expected it. I don't think it was unexpected, I should say. We'll come on to talking about it, but for me, I don't think the players covered themselves in glory at all. I think that was unacceptable. You even think about it on a personal level, wanting to play for Stephen Davis in isolation. It was shocking to a man, other than Jack Butland, which is probably the catchphrase of the season. There are injuries there, absolutely, but that doesn't excuse anything that we've seen last night. Players looking leggy, players running past them. Physicality is just awful. The energy has just been sapped out of the team, and then you start to pick it out, and you think, well, who actually is it? Who's an athlete in that team that you think is one of the fittest players in the league, or one of the most physically imposing? You've got Sima, maybe there. You've got Matondo, a couple of others, but Goldson and Tavernier, fitness-wise, for me, have just gone off a cliff, which you can't not expect that when you're the wrong side of 30. Probably more in Tav's case, he's a couple of years older. But even the replacements, Bridvan isn't exactly physically imposing, is quite frail. Dujon Sterling hasn't really been able to use his physicality in the short amount of times that we've seen him. Lundstrom, Barisic, Davies, Dessers, Lammers, the physical aspect of it. I'm not talking about having a team of shit kickers in there that are going to just kick players off the park. I'm talking about movement, intelligence, energy. It just all felt sadly lacking. And yeah, like I said, I don't quite buy into the whole I feel really sorry for Stephen Davis thing. I feel like he's been put in a situation that he shouldn't have been, and I feel more should have been made of that. I don't think that caretaker appointment of having those five members of staff was the right thing to do. If it is, as transpires, just turns out it's for 2 games, then fair enough. But if it's going to be moving into November, December, and we still had them in place, I think that was a very, very strange appointment to make. But obviously, we'll see how things go with that.
Yeah. Hard to disagree with anything that Adam said there, Joshua. I woke up this morning probably even more angrier than what I was last night. There's a comment yesterday saying that this apathy is set in, which is bad news. Let's look at the detail last night. I mean, the stats make grim reading, don't they?
Yeah, they do. Connor Goldson's summation on BT Sport, "It's rubbish," was, I thought, quite apt. Yeah. This detail, I think this just shows, I think it gives some context to the fact this wasn't a game where Rangers, we've heard a lot, I think it comes out in post-match interviews, we just didn't take our chances and the opposition did take theirs. I don't think that's true at all last night. Aris created the better opportunities. He had a 71% chance of winning just on chances alone. And we can get into some of the I think some of the whys behind that, Derek, probably inform what type of manager Rangers need. I mean, I don't think that Rangers dressing room are going to get a manager who they respect more than Stephen Davis. If you're not talking about what type of football manager is going to get them to play or what experience they have on a pure basis of that group, I'm sure will have wanted to put on a performance and a result for Stephen Davis last night, but they weren't able to. So as someone who, a cliched manager who commands respect, a disciplinarian, is he going to be able to get more out of them than that? I don't know. I don't think it's that type of issue. I think this is, as much as there's, as you say, that apathy that is set in, and there's clearly stuff that's seriously wrong. I don't think that's the root out of this issue. So yeah, just I guess a quick look at this. Rangers created only 0.68 expected goals. I think about half of that came from crosses. They crossed the ball 33 times. They looked to play directly, and Stephen Davis spoke about kind of simplifying the game after. But I think the reason that didn't work is Aris were quite happy to kind of sit off Rangers centre-backs in the initial sense and kind of defend the long passes that they faced. And I think, as we touched upon last night, Derek, it didn't look like a team. Rangers did not look like a team who were designed or built to provide a wide threat aside from crosses, and that's reflected in the makeup of the squad and the way that Beale wanted to play. Aris could quite easily have gone 2-0 up within 15 minutes if you look at that big kind of indent just after their goal. And yes, Rangers kind of, I agree with the fact that they kind of were their own undoing, because if you think of the second goal, the ball was given away cheaply. Before that big chance that I mentioned just after the first goal, the ball was given away cheaply as well. They conceded off a set piece, and to be fair to Goldson, he came and held his hands up at that. But Rangers weren't able to create any significant chances of note. As I say, I think about half of their small amount of expected goals anyway came from crosses into the box and set pieces. And Dallas Seaman was actually a really good header for the chance value. I think it was only a 0.12 chance value. It was across kind of at the edge of the box, wasn't it? So I think it was a game that I guess the point I come back to, people will have their different points of view. Some will say you need a short-term disciplinarian or that kind of figurehead manager to come in and kind of just sort it. I don't think that's the root of the issue. I think definitely there's serious questions to be had about the extent of what, not only what Rangers have rebuilt, but what they haven't rebuilt. It's clear that certain figures in this team have reached the end of the road and have had one too many bad results to I guess, earn trust again. And I think I don't think anyone's going to argue with that. But I think if you look at the actual game last night, this is a team that are obviously clearly as well devoid of confidence. And even though they're playing for someone like Stephen Davis, who they all absolutely respect, Goldson said that in the mix zone after, I don't think this is an issue that you just kind of, you know what I'm trying to say. I don't think this is an issue that if you instill some simple values and you go back to simple football, I don't think it just fixes like that. I think this is a team that for whatever reason have not played a style of football this season that is going to allow them to score the number of goals to give them the platform to win the games that you need to at Rangers. And if you don't win that number of games, Rangers have already lost 5 games this season, I think, then you're going to be under immense pressure. So, and I think the stats back that up last night. This wasn't a game in which Rangers missed chances and they were unfortunate at the other end. They conceded the better chances, and I think Aris were very deserving of their victory over the course of the game.
This is why I always got so frustrated with Michael Beale coming out after games and saying, we had a lot of shots, so just a matter of time. Rangers and Aris both had 4 shots on target in this game, and you look at the quality there. They had 9, I think we had 9 shots and they'd 13, so not a huge amount in terms of actual shots, but quality-wise it's off the charts compared to what we had, and I think that's the story of the last year. I would say I agree with you, Josh. I don't normally like to go for these type of statements, but in terms of, I think you're right. I think it's not just a case of come in and we'll move to a back 3 and we'll play it from the back and we'll do something different and we'll change this and we'll be a bit more organised. Again, I wouldn't ever want to go to this point, but I think we need to. I think for me it's about removing players that have been there as failures. You can talk about the pros and cons of various players, but I think we're definitely now at the tipping point for quite a number of players, particularly I would say in the defence and defensive midfield. Tavernier, Goldson, Barisic, Lundstrom. Some of them will be leaving in the summer anyway, but I think there probably needs to be statements made there in terms of what we want to do going forward as a club from a new manager. as you know, Derek, the last manager who came in and tried to remove the captain and put them into the reserves or get rid of them was Paul Le Guen, and that didn't exactly go to plan when there was a player revolt. So it's never as easy as that either. But I do think we're not far off of that sort of drastic measure stage, just to not necessarily show who's boss, but just to signal that there is going to be a new era coming in, rather than maybe half-assing it like we might have done under Van Bronckhorst, and then maybe trying to and not bringing the required quality of players that we did this summer. So, not something I would always advocate, but I do think we're not far off that complete clean slate.
Yeah, I was just thinking there of the players that started last night, Joshua. I would probably have 3 of those in the starting lineup on Sunday. Butland, Raskin, and Sima. The rest can go. Too drastic?
I think it's a hard task to argue against that on the basis of last night. I think if you look at it overall, Derek, if you're looking at that, I guess to take that question, how many players do you build around? There is a core in the likes of Raskin and Campbell and Butland. I can't think of many more off the top of my head at the moment who you think, yes, definitely they're there for the new manager to build around. Danilo, I think, as well. We've not seen much of him, but I think he will be someone who scores a lot of goals for Rangers. But this is why I think that, and we're going to be writing about this more for a piece on the website tomorrow, but whatever manager comes in, I think there needs to be real consideration given to the players that he has in the short term, given to the ability he'll have to get different players in. For example, if it's a Knutson or a Muscat, for example, managers who rely a lot on what the players can bring them from wide areas. I don't think this is a squad necessarily built for that. Again, not to say that players can't learn a new style of play, but that's I guess what I'm insinuating, that if you bring in a manager now and they're so reliant on wingers, they're so reliant on having depth and options in that area, Rangers don't have that. All comes back to the sporting director of football question for me, because that is what should offer you continuity between transfer windows and managers. So to your question, I think Sundays, it's a really difficult position for Stephen Davis to be in, because I don't think the approach helped last night, but I don't think there's too much anyone could have done in the immediate sense. And that's why if you brought in Warnock or any of the other names that are kind of in the traditional mold of managers, are they going to change anything by telling these players who are underperforming that they're underperforming? I don't think so. I think it's gone so far, and the confidence is so low to one scale. The only way you get out of that is by fresh starts, as kind of we're all insinuating, but also I think building something that's sustainable to the demands of Rangers and what modern football's like, and the type of team you need to build to be successful week in, week out. Because I just thought last night there was no part of that game where I was confident at all that Rangers were building any attack and momentum, and I just really don't want to watch Rangers crossing from deep ever again, because that's just a pattern that we've seen repeatedly, as we spoke about last night, Derek. We've seen repeatedly for years, and it's not fun to watch, and it's not effective, I think, at all.
I think given it's just this one game in isolation, it maybe doesn't seem as drastic. If for us to play quite a number of kids on Sunday, like I tweeted out last night, I'm not sure anybody really expects us to win the game, and I'm also not sure that Stephen Davis has aspirations of being the manager right now. So in that sense, it's a little bit of a free hit, but in that real sense, is Stephen Davis really going to effectively throw players under the bus and remove them from the team just for one game? That would need to be a board level decision, I think, that happened there. I can agree with Josh. For me, I think moving forward, we've got 3 options. Option 1 is to go out and get a new manager and not change anything else, and be back here probably within the next 10 months in terms of what we're trying to do, which I don't think anybody wants. Option 2 would be to go out and get a new manager right now, one that we think can implement a style of play that we want to take forward as a club, can be a leader, a man manager, and very, very quickly get him support above him, sporting director of football, head of recruitment, all that sort of stuff, and run it in tandem. There will be some teething issues there, absolutely, and they'll be working together and trying to figure out what they're doing as the season is going. That would be, I guess, a kind of halfway house. And then the third option is maybe one that Joshua just mentioned there, get an experienced interim manager. And I don't really, not that I don't care who it is. I would never advocate people like Neil Warnock and Sam Allardyce in terms of their style of play. But I just think the situation that it's in just now, if you were to go and get a manager for 6 months and say, need you to hold the fort and need you to almost keep things as, not as they are, but you know what I mean? We don't want to completely collapse here. We want to just keep things going for 6 months or so. We'll spend a bit of time in the background, appointing director of football, reviewing managers over a period of time, figuring out what we want to do infrastructure-wise, just almost try and put a pause on the pitch for 6 months. The issue you've got there is how appetising is that to a fan base that has been battered from pillar to post for the last 2 years, basically saying, we're going to put a pause on it, we've messed up, give us 6 months and we'll try and sort something out come the summer. I don't know if that's realistic either. So for me, I think that the most realistic approach is to go out and get a manager that we think will take us forward over the next 2-3 years, and immediately go out and hire football executives with experience at clubs of our size to go and implement that strategy. I think that's probably the most realistic option. But if we just go for a manager and expect everything to remain the same and give him another 15 million next summer, then yeah, we'll be back here again quite quickly, I think.
Lots of comments coming with regards to said options. Adam Simon says it's bad when Adam is aboard the Warnock Express. See, a lot of you coming round to my idea. It was poo-poo to begin with, but listen, that last night's shambles has won a lot of people around. No, Morris Ross was engaging. He doesn't want Warnock up with my tweet I posted last night, but just a coach that can actually coach. Andrew Taylor says, short-term solution, Big Sam to restore a winning mentality. Broxy loves the Ranger review, saying, I agree with Derek about a caretaker type like Warnock or Big Sam. I know Joshua will disagree, which I get, but we need to get them sorted out before getting the right style of play.
The thing is, Derek, I don't know what that actually means, because again, you look, surely that group of players last night, aside from tactics, aside from what players are available, aside from the game, surely that players, you're not going to get anyone else apart from Davies that they're going to respect more. Maybe in isolation, but in terms of a collective,
he's somebody kick back sides, Joshua. Somebody going into that dressing room.
Is that really going to work?
Yeah.
Is shouting? Do you think shouting at that group of players?
It's not shouting. It's just man management. Players will run through a brick wall for guys like Neil Warnock and.
But are players going to run through a brick wall more for? Let's take that group of players last night. Are they going to run through a brick wall more than they would for Stephen Davies, who's someone that surely not because probably, I'm not saying they won't.
A different approach. Someone that's been there and done that, been in the game for about 30 odd years, has got experience of turning clubs in crisis around immediately. Huddersfield were gone last season. That was a miracle he performed at Huddersfield to get them up.
Yeah, and I agree.
The championship.
I agree that there's an argument that you do make a short-term appointment. You take, depending on what happens at the weekend, you take Davies out the firing line, and you and you have a short-term appointment so that you can, as Adam says, not be in this situation this time next year, because we're having the exact same, if not worse, conversations this year compared to last season. In my opinion, though, I don't think you're going to get anyone I don't think you're going to get a figure that players respect more than Stephen Davies. And
what about this though, Joshua? What about this? I'll put this to you. Right. We need someone in who they don't know, Bob says.
Why? Like, what's that going to do? I mean, I'd be interested in what Adam thinks on that. But I just think there's a reason that these type of managers, like, take Big Sam, for example, last season. Big Sam went in at Leeds. And I think they lose all 4 games. And then Big Sam was actually, when he was a coach in the first instance, was quite as we spoke about earlier in the week, Derek, he was someone who was at the forefront of using data in football. And I'm not trying to come on and be cliche about certain types of managers who have forgotten more about football than I know. But what I'm trying to insinuate is I think football, Big Sam, when he went into Leeds last season, why wasn't he able to make an impact? I think it's too far gone.
The players are all their contract situation and all.
But then as that
Daniel Farke is still trying to sort that out.
True. But is that different here? I think that it's just my opinion. I think that there is an argument. There is an argument that you make a short-term appointment, and that you get things right the long term. Although my preference, probably, if you look at the candidates, would be someone like Clement, who I think has the credentials in terms of building teams, in terms of winning leagues of a comparative strength and managing the dominant team. But I do think there's an argument as well that you try and have a short-term plug the gap for a long-term solution. And Davies isn't experienced. You're right. Davies isn't experienced as a manager, and there's going to be drawbacks that come from that. I just think if you look at last night in isolation, I don't think if you make an appointment like that, it's going to be necessarily something that fixes a solution. I think it runs deeper than that. I think the solution is a footballing one as well. And I completely agree that these things about players, letting the club down, they all run parallel with that. I just don't think that that's what's going to get you out of this situation. But this is football, isn't it? We all have different opinions about it.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah, absolutely. Hugster says, "Get Archie Knox in the dressing room." I wouldn't be opposed to that, buddy. Someone like that, and Dezo with the point. A stranger to this group of players is required. No loyalties, no preconceptions. It's a desperate state of affairs, Adam. There's no doubt about it. No idea how we've got to this point. Well, I do know. I think the appointment in Michael Beale, in retrospect, was a bad one, and giving them free rein over the summer transfers was a mistake also. Can someone coming in, some of the names that have been mentioned, of course, Muscat, Frank Lampard doesn't seem to be going away. I've not seen one fan that is backing that appointment. We've mentioned Knutson. Listen, this is where I'm in Knutson. I spoke to a Bodo Glimt fan in the summer. He's turned down jobs before. He's working in a very unique place in the world. He's happy there. It's a big, huge jump to go from Bodo Glimt, based in the Arctic Circle, small club who are punching above their weight, to Rangers. I can't see that one happening for the life of me, but I may be proved wrong. Philip Clement is one, I think, that has certainly got a few fans' ears pricked up with that one. He has won titles in Belgium, and most recently was at Monaco, of course. He was dismissed at the end of last season. Of those names just so far, Adam, anyone that jumps out to you? Is there any other ones apart from that you would like to maybe see take the reins?
Yeah, I agree on Knutson. I think that's a bit of a perfect storm up there. I'm not actually sure he exists outside of the Arctic Circle, to be honest. He just seems like a kind of Bermuda Triangle in Norway. So, I agree on that one. Clement, I think from what I've seen and from what I watched, looks really, really interesting. Don't know much about personality-wise. I remember him very, very briefly at Coventry when he was there.
He was a decent player.
One season, wasn't it? Left-sided centre-half, left-back maybe? So I remember that, and obviously I think you get an impression of him when you look at him in terms of how imposing he looks, which may or may not tally up to how he actually looks, but I don't know enough about him yet. I would say in terms of tactical flexibility, number of leagues he's won, I don't actually think we've ever had a manager come in, certainly not a foreign manager come in, who's won multiple league titles with two different clubs. So that's one benefit that I think we probably would need, is that experience working with different clubs, moving to different leagues. Had relative success at Monaco, I guess, for the first half of his spell, and then it kind of fell off a cliff a little bit, and they finished sixth. So he would be the one, I think, profile-wise, it's the most interesting. I am coming round to Muscat, and I'm not sure if it's just because we're getting scared with Frank Lampard, but certainly I am coming round in terms of style of play, sort of leadership, mentality. He has undertaken quite a big revolution in Yokohama since Postecoglou left. He's had to lost quite a lot of players. He's had to bring players in from the academies or from the universities, or bring in free transfers and try and horse trade. They've not got the biggest budget in the league there by far, and he's had them up in first and second place for two and a half years. So it's not just a case of a sort of plug and play, and he's getting all the benefits of what Postecoglou done. I think they were in a fairly bad way when Postecoglou left. I'm sure they were ninth the season before, and then maybe fourth or fifth. So it isn't as simple as he's just copying Postecoglou. I think he's been a good manager there in his own right. Whether that translates over, I have no idea on that one, but he certainly would be up there for me. And then Oliver Glasner got linked again last night, didn't he? I don't know how realistic that is. I don't know loads about them. The only full match I've watched is the one in Seville, which obviously I won't be revisiting for obvious reasons.
I think we'll still get PTSD for that game, so I think that would be
probably just
hard
on
one.
Just on that basis, I don't think I could take him, to be honest, in the state that we're in. Don't think I could handle seeing that. But no, he seems like a decent candidate as well. So those would be the three, based on watching quite a bit of Muscat now, little bit of Clermont, and not very much of Glasner. Kind of gut instinct, those three seem okay. But as we said, I'm not sure how much difference they're going to make without being given a proper chance in terms of structure and everything round about them, but we'll wait and see.
Yeah. Just on Muscat, Duncan Mackay says, what did Muscat do in Belgium? Had a difficult period in there with a smallish club, didn't he, in Belgium? Yeah, Joshua, you want to jump in?
Just on that, I don't know too much about that from what I've read. I think there was some difficulties with the fact that he didn't have his badges from Australia didn't correlate,
right, okay.
and he had to then be appointed as technical director. So yeah, I don't know how much you read into that. I guess it depends on your opinion, but I agree with Adam. I think Muscat and then Clermont at the top for me. You need stature, and
yeah.
As much as I did a thread last night on Twitter, and as I say, got a piece coming on this tomorrow. Style of play for me is important, not only from an aesthetic point of view. It helps because I want to watch Rangers play good football, because I watch Rangers more than anyone else, as all of you guys do as well, and it's nice to watch good football. But I think if you look how many teams are grinding their way to league titles at the moment, look at the game state that Rangers have to face every single week. It's all about how you move a defence, and therefore a coach who is able to create a team that does that well, I think is going to be the most effective. So I think that's number one. You need to have a coach who has experience of winning league titles recently, and I think the reason that style of play comes into it is because obviously, to as Adam says, it's not just about shots, it's about shot quality, it's not just about chances, it's about chance quality. I think one of Beale's undoings at the end was that obviously the reliance on fullbacks and I think a type of setup that would have worked a few years ago. But again, how many teams do you see swinging in those deep crosses now? Not many at all. You have completely different solutions in those areas. So that's one thing. I don't think you need a previous association with Rangers, because the last two appointments show that that's not a necessity. I think Scottish football is, without being exceptional, it's unique, and there is unique elements of it. There is unique elements to going away from home to certain grounds. But again, I think creating the best football team is going to give you the best chance of shutting that up and being successful. I do think you need stature. Again, I think results help that. I think there's different ways to exert stature. But I think and I do think as well that the squad has to come into it. And this is it's at the bottom of this thread, and it'll be in this piece as well. This is why I think sporting directorship, one of so many reasons we focus so much on recruitment when we talk about it, but you need continuity between managers and styles and signings. Not so much so that I think managers should not be working with players who they don't want to work with. But equally, I guess at points you need a strong sporting director to say to managers, is that the right signing? Is that a long-term signing? Is this signing? And they need to think beyond the manager. Is this signing going to work? If this manager is not here, it's about safeguarding between different transfer windows and safeguarding between different managers. And just lastly, I think I've not watched as much of Clermont's teams. I've watched a fair bit of Muscat. Those are the two styles that stand out to me so far. I agree with Knutson that he's not managed outside of Norway. It would be a big jump. I still think from what I've seen, their football's really good. And again, I keep coming back to that. What's going to get buy-in? The reason that I think Beale struggled towards the end is when he came in and he said, this is how we're going to play. People have a conception of what that looks like and how that feels when you go to Ibrox. Handbrake off is the phrase that people kept coming back to. When you're not perceived to do that, you make a rod for your own back. If you can have a manager that's going to instill a certain style of play, again, not only from an aesthetic point of view, but from an effective point of view, fast football, it's difficult for opponents to defend against. That when they come to Ibrox, they know we cannot... when they come to Ibrox, they're not able to just think, okay, I know at one point, if we go ahead, Rangers are just going to resort to crosses and we're comfortable defending that. Arguably, that's the preferential way we defend because of the nature of the centre-backs we have. Instead, you'd have teams coming to Ibrox who are going to have to play against fast attacking football that has a lot of different options. So I think that's why style needs to come into it so much. That the question and the difficulty within that is if you're looking at Muscat and Clermont, how do they adapt their styles to what they have? I think, as Adam says, Clermont's maybe slightly more tactically flexible, whereas Muscat, although he from the games I've watched, he's done some different things. Thinks he's more a systems-based manager, and I do worry a little bit about the option that Rangers have in the final third at the moment. The way the squad is built compares to the type of football he'd want to play. But that's what I think the new Rangers manager needs. And yeah, I think the last two appointments show that association with the club might help in the immediate sense, but for both those managers, it didn't help in the long term sense.
Yeah. Right. Sunday then. Firstly, Gaz Jones says, what time's the press conference? I don't think there is one. I'm right in thinking, Joshua. I think the manager did a extended one last night. But no press conference today.
Yeah, and I don't think the team are coming back until today from Cyprus. That Gaz has reminded me that I've not checked my emails first thing to work if that's the case. But if there is, you'll have full coverage. If not, we're going to have lots of, as mentioned,
there's nothing. Nothing I can see anyway.
No, so it's going to be Chris is going to have an opinion piece. I'm going to have that deep dive into all the managers. So loads of content to keep you going until the joy of watching Rangers again in a couple of days. Yeah,
before you go, Adam, what's happening Sunday? Are Rangers getting a win?
No, I don't know, honestly. I need to wait and see what again. I'm going to need to wait and see what the lineup is. If it's the sort of same again, if we're dealing with the same 4 defenders and 2 defensive midfielders away to St Mirren, that might not be a bad shout in this very specific instance. But I honestly don't know, Derek. I can't even call it. Last night I was just sitting there drained of any emotion. I'm not even sure I was sad. I was just.
See what I mean? It's a numbness.
General acceptance.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'll just say 2-1 Rangers, and that covers me on a number of accounts.
I'll go along with that as well. We'll have a predicted teams out at some point over the weekend, probably Saturday. They'll be make for interest in reading. I'm sure, Joshua, when we get those on the website. Just a reminder before we go, though, folks, if you want to subscribe to the website, we've got 2 great offers on: £4 for 4 months, or you can take out a year's subscription, just £18. Head over to rangersreview.co.uk/subscribe. Huge thanks to Adam and to Joshua for joining us on this morning show, and we'll speak to you a little later on. Bye for now.